Hi guys, the night settles gently over the wide valley of the Nile. The air has finally cooled after another long day beneath the bright Egyptian sun. A quiet breeze moves through the reeds beside the river, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and growing grain. Somewhere in the distance, water touches the muddy banks with a slow and patient rhythm that has never hurried for anyone. The stars begin to appear one by one above the dark desert, just as they have for thousands of years. This is a peaceful place to begin our journey. There are no great battles waiting for us tonight. No loud celebrations or moments of sudden triumph. Instead, we will walk softly through ordinary days that have long since faded into history. We will spend our time beside farmers who wake before sunrise, builders whose hands grow rough from shaping stone, fishermen who quietly guide their boats across calm water, and families whose lives are filled with simple routines repeated season after season. These are the people who carried Egypt forward, one quiet day at a time. As the night grows deeper, imagine yourself standing beside the Nile before dawn. The world is almost silent. Only the sound of insects rises from the grasses. The village still sleeps beneath flat mud brick roofs. A few cooking fires have burned down to glowing embers, and narrow streets rest beneath soft darkness. Nothing moves very quickly here. Ancient Egypt was a land famous for mighty temples, towering monuments, and rulers whose names still echo across history. Yet most people never saw themselves as part of those grand stories. Their days were measured instead by sunrise and sunset, by the height of the river, by baskets of grain, by loaves of bread cooling beside the oven, and by tired feet returning home each evening. Their world was built from routine. And routine, repeated over many generations, became one of the strongest foundations of Egyptian life. Before the first light reaches the eastern horizon, a quiet change begins to spread across the village. A rooster calls somewhere beyond the houses. A donkey shifts its weight inside a small enclosure. The sound is soft enough that only the earliest risers hear it. Inside one simple home, a woman slowly opens her eyes. She has slept on a woven reed mat laid across the packed earth floor. The night has offered only a few hours of cool air before another warm day arrives. She sits carefully so she does not wake the youngest child sleeping beside her. Outside, the stars still shine. She steps into the small courtyard, where clay jars hold yesterday's water. The surface feels cool beneath her fingers. Soon the sun will warm everything it touches, but for these quiet moments the village belongs to the gentle air before dawn. Nearby, another family begins their morning in much the same way. Little separates one household from another. The walls are made from sun-dried mud bricks mixed with straw. They are thick enough to keep out some of the day's heat, though not all of it. The roof is flat, built from wooden beams covered with reeds and packed mud. During the hottest nights, some family members may choose to sleep upon that roof beneath the open sky, where even the smallest breeze feels welcome. Comfort is simple. Luxury belongs to very few. Most people own only what they truly need. Clay bowls, woven baskets, simple linen clothing, wooden stools, a grinding stone for grain. Perhaps a small carved figure placed quietly in a corner of the home, reminding the family of hope, protection, and peaceful days ahead. As darkness slowly gives way to pale blue light, fires begin appearing across the village. One after another. Each family carefully wakes the coals left from yesterday or starts a fresh flame using dry reeds and small pieces of wood collected whenever possible. Fuel is precious. Nothing is wasted. Soon the smell of baking bread begins drifting through the narrow streets. It is one of the first familiar scents every morning. Women knead dough that was prepared the night before. Strong hands press and fold the mixture without hurry. Grain has already been ground into flour using heavy stone tools, a task that required patience and steady effort. The flour is mixed with water and shaped into simple loaves before being placed inside warm clay ovens. The bread is plain, yet it fills empty stomachs. It gives strength for another day. Beside the ovens, children slowly wake. Some rub sleep from their eyes while others quietly help gather water or sweep the courtyard. Even the youngest members of the family begin learning responsibilities early in life. There is always something that needs doing, though no one rushes through the morning. Life moves with steady rhythm rather than speed. As sunlight begins touching the tops of nearby palm trees, more people emerge into the village streets. Men adjust simple linen kilts around their waists. Women smooth long linen dresses that keep them comfortable beneath the growing heat. Sandals made from woven papyrus protect their feet from rough ground, though many people simply walk barefoot, especially within the village itself. Neighbors greet one another with calm familiarity. They have seen these same faces almost every day of their lives. There is comfort in that. No introductions are needed. Only quiet recognition. A nod. A smile. A few soft words exchanged before work begins once again. Some farmers shoulder wooden hoes worn smooth from years of use. Others guide oxen toward nearby fields. The animals know the familiar paths almost as well as their owners. Dust rises gently beneath every step. The village slowly empties as people begin making their way toward the land that feeds them. The Nile waits nearby, broad and calm beneath the morning sky. Its waters have shaped every part of Egyptian life for countless generations. Without the river, these villages could not exist. Without its yearly floods, the fields would remain dry beneath endless desert skies. The people understand this deeply. They do not think of the river as separate from themselves. It is part of daily life. Part of every meal. Part of every harvest. Part of every hope for the future. Farmers arrive at the fields while shadows are still long. This is the best time to work. The morning air remains gentle, and the heat has not yet settled across the land. Green shoots stretch across fertile soil left rich by earlier floods. Water channels carry precious moisture through carefully managed fields. Every ditch has been dug by human hands. Every bank requires attention. If one section breaks, water may flow where it is not needed while another field becomes too dry. Even simple maintenance demands careful observation. Work often begins in silence. The only sounds come from birds calling overhead, sandals brushing through soft soil, distant oxen pulling wooden plows, and the steady splash of water being lifted by hand. No one expects excitement. There is satisfaction instead. The satisfaction of knowing what must be done. The satisfaction of repeating skills learned from parents and grandparents before them. Each movement becomes almost effortless through years of practice. A farmer bends to inspect young grain. His fingers gently touch the leaves. He notices small changes invisible to visitors. He knows which plants received enough water yesterday. He remembers where insects appeared several days ago. His knowledge is not written in books. It lives inside memory. Inside experience. Inside thousands of quiet mornings spent beneath the same wide sky. The sun continues climbing higher. Its warmth spreads across the fields. The cool morning slowly disappears. Workers remove sweat from their foreheads using the backs of their hands. No one complains loudly. Heat is simply another companion of the day. It has always been there. It always will be. By mid-morning, fishermen guide small boats onto calm stretches of the Nile. Their vessels are simple, built from wood or bundles of papyrus tied together with care. The river reflects pale blue light broken only by gentle ripples spreading behind each boat. Fishing requires patience. Nets are lowered quietly. Spears remain ready but still. The fishermen understand that sudden movements often frighten away the fish. So they wait. Watching the water. Listening to birds hidden among the reeds. Feeling the slow drift of the current beneath them. Hours pass almost unnoticed. Meanwhile, back within the village, artisans begin another day inside crowded workshops. Potters shape damp clay upon simple wheels. The cool earth responds beneath skilled fingers. A plain lump gradually becomes a water jar, a bowl, or a storage vessel. Nothing is wasted. Every object has purpose. Nearby, carpenters smooth rough wood using bronze tools. The scent of fresh cut timber mixes with dust floating through shafts of sunlight entering open doorways. Stone workers chip patiently at limestone blocks. Each careful strike echoes softly through the workshop. No one hurries. Mistakes cannot easily be repaired. Steady hands are valued more than fast ones. Even scribes, whose work requires clean hands rather than strong arms, begin their mornings with careful routine. Papyrus sheets are laid flat. Brushes are prepared. Small containers of ink wait nearby. Records must be kept. Harvests counted. Supplies listed. Letters copied. The work demands quiet concentration. For hours, only the gentle scratching of reed pens fills the room. Outside, the day grows brighter. Heat gathers upon rooftops. Dogs seek patches of shade. Children too young for heavy work play briefly before helping with lighter household tasks. Older relatives often remain near the home, weaving baskets, repairing clothing, or watching younger family members while everyone else works. Life depends upon every generation contributing in whatever way they can. There is little separation between work and family. Both exist together. Both depend upon one another. As the morning slowly fades toward midday, the air becomes thick with warmth. The desert beyond the green valley begins to shimmer beneath the blazing sun. The horizon seems to ripple like water. Even birds become quieter. Workers naturally slow their pace. Not from laziness. From wisdom. The body understands its limits beneath such powerful heat. Whenever possible, people pause beneath trees or simple shelters built from reeds and wooden poles. Bread is shared. Perhaps onions. Dates. Figs. Sometimes dried fish. Water stored in clay jars feels wonderfully cool despite the rising temperature. Conversation remains gentle. No one wastes energy speaking loudly. Most people simply enjoy a few peaceful moments before returning to work. The Nile continues flowing beside them without hurry. It has watched countless generations live these same quiet days. Its waters carry reflections of fishermen, farmers, merchants, children, and old men sitting peacefully beneath palm trees. Every face eventually changes. The river remains. And so another ordinary Egyptian day continues, steady as the current itself, carried gently forward beneath the warm sun and the endless sky. By the time the midday meal has ended, the sun stands almost directly overhead. The light is bright enough to soften the edges of every shadow. The air seems almost still. Even the palm leaves move only when the smallest breeze passes through them. Across the valley, the fields shimmer beneath the heavy warmth, while the desert beyond remains quiet and endless beneath the pale blue sky. The afternoon is often the hardest part of the day. The cool freshness of morning has disappeared, and sunset still feels far away. Every movement asks for a little more strength than it did only a few hours before. Yet the work continues, not with haste, but with calm determination. The people of ancient Egypt understand the rhythm of these long days. They know that every season brings its own demands, and every task must be done in its proper time. A farmer slowly lifts another basket of grain. His shoulders are already tired. The muscles in his back have carried many baskets over many years. They have grown strong, but strength does not remove fatigue. Sweat gathers along his forehead before quietly running down the side of his face. Dust clings to his skin, creating a fine layer that will remain until evening, when he finally washes beside the river. He pauses for only a moment. Not because someone orders him to continue, but because the field itself asks for patience. The crops cannot hurry. Neither can the seasons. Nearby, another farmer repairs a small irrigation channel that has begun to crumble along one edge. With careful hands he presses damp earth back into place, smoothing it little by little. Water begins flowing once again along its intended path, filling the narrow trench before spreading gently toward waiting plants. This small repair may seem unimportant. Yet tomorrow's harvest may depend upon it. Much of life in Egypt is made of these quiet acts that almost no one notices. A loose rope tied more tightly. A broken basket woven again. A cracked clay jar sealed with fresh mud. A worn sandal carefully repaired instead of replaced. Nothing useful is thrown away without thought. Everything has value because every object has required someone's time and labor. Not far from the fields, several women gather beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. They have carried empty clay jars from the village, balanced carefully upon their heads or resting against one shoulder. The river waits only a short walk away, its surface sparkling beneath the afternoon sun. They walk together at an easy pace. Their conversation rises and falls like the water itself. Sometimes they speak about children who are growing quickly. Sometimes about bread that baked especially well that morning. Sometimes about neighbors preparing for an upcoming festival. Often there are long moments when no one speaks at all. Silence is not uncomfortable. It is simply another companion. Reaching the riverbank, they kneel beside the water. The clay jars are lowered carefully, allowing the cool river to flow inside. Small ripples spread outward, disturbing the reflections of reeds growing nearby. Fish move silently beneath the surface. White birds stand perfectly still in the shallows, waiting patiently for their next meal. Dragonflies drift through the warm air with delicate wings that catch the sunlight. Everything here seems to move slowly. The river encourages patience. It has done so for thousands of years. Back in the village, smoke rises gently from outdoor ovens where another round of bread is already being prepared. The smell drifts through narrow streets lined with mud brick walls. Some homes have small courtyards where herbs grow in clay pots. Others keep chickens scratching quietly in shaded corners. A grandmother sits upon a low stool near one doorway. Her hands continue working even while she rests. She twists strands of flax into thread with practiced movements that no longer require much thought. Her fingers have repeated this motion since childhood. They move almost by memory alone. Beside her, a little girl watches carefully. She is still too young to help very much. But she is learning. Every glance becomes part of her education. There are few written instructions for ordinary life. Most knowledge passes gently from one generation to the next through observation, repetition, and quiet correction. The grandmother smiles softly when the child tries to copy the movement. The thread breaks. The child frowns. Without speaking many words, the older woman begins again, slowly enough for small eyes to follow. Learning is never rushed. Across the village another lesson unfolds. A father stands beside his son near a simple wooden cart. The wheel has loosened after many journeys over rough roads. Together they lift the cart carefully, using stones to support its weight. The father removes the wheel. He points toward the worn axle. The boy studies it closely. Soon his own hands will know how to make this repair without guidance. Today he watches. Tomorrow he helps. Years later he may teach another child beneath the same afternoon sun. So much of Egyptian life depends upon continuity. Skills are not collected quickly. They grow slowly, season after season. Many craftsmen begin learning while they are still very young. A boy entering a workshop may spend months simply sweeping floors, carrying tools, or watching experienced workers shape wood or stone. At first this may seem like little progress. Yet every day his eyes gather new understanding. He notices how firmly to hold a chisel. He learns which sounds tell an experienced mason that stone is cracking properly. He discovers that good work often comes from careful attention rather than great strength. An apprentice potter learns to feel the clay. Not simply to see it. Too much water leaves it weak. Too little makes it difficult to shape. The hands become sensitive to tiny differences invisible to most people. Eventually the clay itself seems to guide the fingers. Inside another workshop, linen hangs from wooden beams after being washed and stretched. Light filters through the open doorway, making the cloth appear almost golden. Women inspect each piece carefully, searching for loose threads or uneven weaving. Linen is part of everyday life. It protects people from the sun while allowing air to move freely through the fabric. Simple garments are enough for most families. Only wealthier households enjoy finely woven cloth with greater softness and detail. Still, even ordinary clothing receives care. A tear is stitched. A loose edge is repaired. Nothing is discarded simply because it has grown old. As afternoon continues, merchants begin preparing for tomorrow's trading. Small goods are arranged neatly inside baskets. Dried fish, garlic, onions, fresh vegetables gathered that morning, clay lamps, bundles of papyrus, simple jewelry made from shells or colored stones. Everything is counted. Everything has its place. The marketplace itself is quieter now than it was during the busy morning hours. A few customers still wander between stalls, speaking calmly with familiar merchants. There is no rush. Many people know one another by name. Trade often grows from trust built over many years. A fair exchange matters. So does reputation. Nearby, a scribe sits cross-legged beneath a shaded awning. His reed brush moves slowly across a fresh sheet of papyrus. He records measurements of grain delivered earlier that day. The numbers must be correct. Not because perfection is expected, but because accurate records help villages prepare for the future. Grain stored today may feed families months from now. Careful writing protects tomorrow as much as today. The scribe occasionally pauses. He stretches stiff fingers. He looks toward the river where sunlight dances upon gentle waves. Then he returns to his work. Even quiet occupations bring their own weariness. The afternoon wears upon every body in different ways. For laborers building temples or tombs, the work is especially demanding. Far from the grand image that later generations sometimes imagine, many builders are skilled workers following organized routines. Stone blocks wait in neat rows. Wooden sledges rest nearby. Ropes coil carefully in the shade. Teams work together with practiced coordination. No one man carries impossible weight alone. Voices remain calm. Simple instructions pass from one worker to another. Lift together. Step carefully. Lower slowly. Rest. Then begin again. The stone itself seems almost alive beneath the sunlight. Its surface grows warm enough to touch only briefly. Hands toughened by years of labor still feel its heat. Yet each carefully placed block becomes part of something that may stand for centuries. The workers themselves rarely speak about distant generations. Their thoughts remain closer to home. Tonight's meal. Tomorrow's work. Children waiting in the village. A roof needing repair before the next season. History often remembers monuments. The workers remember ordinary evenings. As the afternoon slowly stretches onward, shadows begin growing longer once again. The change is almost impossible to notice at first. Only after some time does the light become softer. The harsh brightness eases. Birdsong gradually returns. A breeze finally arrives from across the river. People lift their faces toward it almost without thinking. Cooler air feels like a quiet gift. Farmers gather tools. Oxen begin walking home along familiar paths. Fishing boats turn gently toward the shore, their nets holding the day's catch. Children waiting near the river run to greet returning parents. Small hands reach for baskets that seem far too heavy. Adults smile and allow them to help anyway. The work may not become easier, but sharing it makes the journey home feel lighter. The village slowly fills again. Doors open. Voices mingle. Cooking fires brighten. Fresh bread emerges from warm ovens, filling the evening air with its comforting scent. Some families prepare lentils. Others roast fish caught only hours before. Dates are placed into woven bowls. Figs are washed carefully. Water is poured into simple cups made from clay. The meal is not extravagant. It does not need to be. After a day of honest labor, simple food tastes deeply satisfying. Families gather closely together. They sit upon woven mats spread across cool floors or beneath the open sky of the courtyard. Children speak about what they noticed during the day. Older relatives listen with patient smiles. Stories are shared quietly. Advice is offered gently. No one rushes the evening meal. The busiest hours have passed. For a little while, work gives way to rest. As darkness slowly approaches, the sounds of labor fade into softer rhythms. The scraping of hoes is replaced by the chirping of crickets. The voices of merchants become quieter. Donkeys settle into their shelters. Dogs curl beside familiar doorways. Above the village, the first evening stars begin appearing one by one. The same stars watched over countless generations before them. Farmers notice them while washing dust from tired hands beside the Nile. Builders see them as they stretch aching backs after another long day. Mothers glimpse them while rocking sleepy children. Fishermen pause for a final moment beside their boats before walking home. Night returns gradually, just as it always has. And as the cool air settles once more across the river valley, another ordinary Egyptian day gently gives way to peaceful evening, leaving behind tired hands, full hearts, and the quiet promise that tomorrow will begin again with the first light over the Nile. Night settles over the village so gently that no single moment announces its arrival. The bright gold of the afternoon slowly fades into soft shades of amber, and then into deep blue. The last warmth of the sun lingers in the mud-brick walls, while cooler air begins drifting across the Nile from the north. The day's work is finished. For now, there is nowhere else to be. The fields can wait until sunrise. The fishing nets have been hung to dry. The baskets have been emptied. The tools have been leaned carefully against walls where they will remain until morning. The village breathes more slowly now. Thin streams of smoke rise from cooking fires before disappearing into the darkening sky. The smell of fresh bread still lingers in the air, joined now by the gentle scent of lentils simmering in clay pots. Some families roast fish caught only a few hours earlier, while others prepare onions, beans, or leafy greens gathered from nearby gardens. No meal is hurried. People have spent the entire day moving beneath the sun. Their tired bodies seem to welcome every quiet moment. Parents sit close together while children finish the last pieces of bread on shared plates. Grandparents eat more slowly, enjoying the cool evening that finally eases the weight of the day's heat. Conversation comes and goes like the evening breeze. No one feels the need to fill every silence. Sometimes the family simply listens. A donkey shifts somewhere beyond the courtyard. A clay cup is gently placed upon the floor. Someone quietly laughs at a memory from earlier in the day. Then silence returns once more. These ordinary sounds become part of the comfort of home. After the meal, many people carry their bowls to a water jar standing in the courtyard. One by one they rinse each piece with care. Clean water is valuable, so none is wasted. The bowls are left upside down to dry overnight. Children often help with this work. Their small hands carry lighter dishes. Older brothers or sisters sweep away crumbs that have fallen onto the packed earth. Even the youngest members of the household learn that a home stays peaceful when everyone contributes a little. No task is too small. As darkness deepens, oil lamps begin to glow inside many homes. The flames are small, casting soft circles of light upon rough walls. Shadows stretch quietly across the floor, moving gently whenever the flame flickers in the evening breeze. The light is never very bright. It does not need to be. Most people will soon prepare for sleep. There is little reason to remain awake long after sunset. Without modern lights, the rhythm of life follows the rhythm of the sky itself. When darkness arrives, the body naturally grows quiet. Many evenings are spent outdoors. Flat rooftops become peaceful places after the day's heat has faded. Families climb simple ladders made from wood and settle upon woven mats beneath the stars. From here they can feel every passing breeze. The air smells faintly of river water mixed with dry earth and distant fields. Above them stretches an enormous sky. The stars appear brighter than almost anywhere else. Far from city lights, every constellation shines with remarkable clarity. The Milky Way forms a pale river across the heavens, mirroring the great Nile flowing quietly below. People have watched these same stars for thousands of years. Children ask questions about them. Parents answer with stories handed down from older generations. Some tales speak of the gods. Others simply explain the changing seasons. The stars are beautiful, but they are also useful. They help travelers find direction. They help farmers understand the passing year. They quietly mark the endless movement of time. Down by the riverbank, fishermen finish caring for their boats before returning home. Nets are spread carefully across wooden frames to dry. Small tiers are repaired immediately. A tiny hole may seem unimportant today. Tomorrow it may allow valuable fish to escape. Patient maintenance saves many hours of future work. The fishermen understand this well. Their hands move almost automatically as they knot fresh strands of cord through worn sections of netting. The work is peaceful. The river beside them flows without interruption. Occasionally a fish breaks the surface with a gentle splash. A bird glides low over the water before disappearing into the reeds. The moon slowly rises. Its reflection stretches across the Nile like a path of silver. Everything seems softer beneath its light. The river no longer sparkles brightly as it did during the day. Instead it glows quietly, inviting long moments of simple observation. Not every evening is spent at home. Sometimes neighbors gather together in open courtyards after supper. They bring low stools or woven mats and sit beneath the warm night sky. Someone may begin telling an old story remembered from childhood. The storyteller never rushes. Every sentence arrives slowly. Children lean against their parents while listening. Older listeners close their eyes, smiling softly as familiar tales unfold once again. These stories are not performed with loud voices. They are shared almost like conversation. Some speak of wise animals. Others tell of clever craftsmen or faithful friends. Many have no clear beginning or ending. They simply wander gently through memory before fading into comfortable silence. Music also finds its place during peaceful evenings. A simple flute may play a slow melody. Someone taps a quiet rhythm upon a small drum. Another person softly sings while others listen. The songs are familiar. They have been heard many times before. Their comfort comes not from surprise but from repetition. The same melodies return year after year, just as the river returns each season. Work and rest are never completely separate. Even while relaxing, someone may mend a basket. A woman twists fresh thread for tomorrow's weaving. An older man sharpens a bronze blade using a smooth stone. These tasks are gentle enough to perform while talking quietly with family. Productive hands remain calm hands. There is satisfaction in preparing for another day without hurry. Inside one modest house, a mother sits beside a sleeping child. The little boy has spent the day following his father through the fields, carrying tools much too large for him. His feet are dusty. His hair smells faintly of sunshine. He fell asleep almost as soon as darkness arrived. His mother gently brushes loose sand from his forehead before adjusting the woven blanket covering him. Tomorrow he will wake before dawn once again. But tonight he sleeps deeply. Across the village, another family welcomes a new baby only a few weeks old. The infant stirs softly while the mother rocks him in her arms. Outside, the sounds of evening continue unchanged. Crickets sing. Palm leaves whisper together. The Nile flows steadily onward. For this child, these sounds will become the music of home. He will hear them through countless nights as he grows. Many elderly people enjoy sitting outdoors until late evening. They have seen many seasons pass. They remember years when the Nile flooded generously and years when the waters rose only a little. They have watched children become parents and parents become grandparents. Time feels different to them now. There is little need to hurry. They understand that tomorrow's sunrise will come whether anyone waits for it or not. So they simply watch the stars. Sometimes they speak quietly. Sometimes they do not. Both feel equally peaceful. Farther away, beyond the villages, the desert rests beneath moonlight. During the day it seems harsh and endless beneath the blazing sun. At night it becomes calm and almost gentle. The sand reflects pale silver light. Small desert animals quietly leave their shelters. Foxes move silently across the dunes. Owls search patiently from above. The wind shapes tiny ripples across the sand, leaving delicate patterns that may disappear before morning. The desert never truly sleeps. It simply becomes quieter. Back near the fertile valley, the fields also enter their own nighttime rhythm. The grain no longer bends beneath busy hands. Instead it sways gently in the cool breeze. Irrigation channels continue carrying water through the darkness, their soft trickling sound almost impossible to separate from the distant voices of frogs hidden among the reeds. Nature continues working while people rest. The fields never stop growing. The river never stops flowing. The moon continues crossing the sky without pause. Inside many homes, sleep arrives gradually. Families lie upon woven reed mats placed side by side. The floor beneath them remains pleasantly cool after sunset. Some homes have small pillows stuffed with linen. Others simply fold cloth beneath their heads. The rooms are simple. There are few possessions to crowd the space. Clay jars line one wall. Baskets rest neatly in another corner. Tools are stored carefully where they will be easy to find before dawn. Everything has its place. Order makes the morning easier. Some people choose to sleep upon the roof instead. Up here the air moves more freely. The stars seem close enough to touch. A father lies awake for a few moments, listening to the steady breathing of his family nearby. He feels tired. His muscles ache pleasantly after a full day's work. Tomorrow will bring more labor. More heat. More dust. More baskets to carry. More water to lift. Yet there is comfort in knowing what tomorrow will ask of him. Its routines are familiar. They have shaped his life since childhood. Not every day is easy. There are seasons of poor harvest. There are illnesses that leave families worried. There are years when the flood rises too high or not high enough. Life in ancient Egypt demands resilience. But it also teaches patience. People learn to accept that some things can be guided while others must simply be endured. The river teaches this lesson every year. The seasons teach it again. As midnight quietly approaches, the village becomes almost completely silent. The cooking fires have faded into glowing embers. The last conversations have ended. Only an occasional dog barks in the distance before settling once more. The moon hangs high above the Nile. Its gentle light washes over boats resting at their moorings, over quiet fields waiting for dawn, over workshops standing empty until morning, and over countless sleeping families whose lives are woven together by simple work, shared meals, steady routines, and the peaceful certainty that another day will begin when the eastern sky slowly turns pale once again. Long before the first hint of morning appears, the village rests in complete stillness. The moon has begun its slow journey toward the western horizon. Its pale light falls gently across quiet rooftops and empty paths where, only yesterday evening, children chased one another before supper. Now every doorway is closed. Every courtyard is peaceful. Every cooking fire has settled into soft gray ash. The only sounds belong to the night itself. Crickets sing from the edges of the fields. A frog calls from the reeds beside the Nile. Far away, a jackal lets out a quiet cry somewhere beyond the green valley, where the open desert stretches beneath the stars. The sound rises for only a moment before disappearing into the darkness. Then everything becomes still once again. Inside one modest home, a family sleeps close together. The father lies nearest the doorway. Years of labor have given him the habit of waking easily, even during the deepest part of the night. Beside him rests his wife, while two children sleep peacefully on woven reed mats nearby. Their breathing is slow and steady. The room is simple. The mud-brick walls still hold a little warmth from yesterday's sun, though the cool night air has made the space comfortable again. A clay jar filled with fresh water stands near the entrance. A small oil lamp has burned itself out hours ago, leaving only darkness inside the room. There is comfort in this quiet. No one feels the need for more. Beyond the village, the Nile continues flowing exactly as it did yesterday and exactly as it will tomorrow. Its current never grows impatient. The water slips gently around reeds and sandbars before continuing northward through the sleeping land. For countless generations, this quiet river has carried life through Egypt. It has witnessed children becoming parents, parents becoming grandparents, villages growing a little larger, old homes slowly replaced by new ones built from fresh mud bricks. The river remembers none of these changes. It simply continues. A faint breeze drifts across the water and moves inland through the fields. The grain sways softly. Palm fronds whisper together. The breeze finally reaches the village, slipping through open windows and across flat rooftops where some families have chosen to sleep beneath the stars. One elderly man opens his eyes for a moment. He looks upward without lifting his head. Above him stretches a sky filled with stars that seem almost close enough to touch. He has looked upon this same sky for more than 60 years. As a child he counted familiar constellations while listening to stories told by his grandfather. As a young man he watched those stars after long days in the fields. Now, with gray hair and weathered hands, they remain faithful companions. He smiles quietly before closing his eyes once more. Sleep returns easily. The hours before dawn pass slowly. Time seems almost to stop. There is no need to hurry through these peaceful moments. They belong to the earth itself. Gradually, almost too gently to notice, the eastern horizon begins to change. The stars nearest the edge of the sky lose a little of their brightness. The darkness softens. Blue slowly replaces black. The first birds wake long before the sun itself appears. A single call echoes from a nearby tree. Another answers. Soon several voices weave together into the beginning of morning. Within the village, the earliest workers begin to stir. Not everyone wakes at the same time. Some remain asleep a little longer. Others have trained their bodies to rise before first light without any effort at all. One woman quietly sits up, careful not to disturb the children beside her. She wraps a simple linen garment around herself before stepping into the courtyard. The air feels wonderfully cool against her skin. She pauses for a moment. There is no sound except birds, distant water, and the gentle rustle of leaves. She breathes deeply. These quiet moments before the day's work begins are precious. Soon the village will fill with voices. Soon sandals will scrape along dusty paths. Soon the heat will return. But not yet. She walks toward the clay oven. Yesterday's ashes still rest inside. Carefully she gathers dry reeds and a few small pieces of wood saved for this purpose. With practiced hands she coaxes a tiny flame back to life. The fire grows slowly. There is no need to force it. Nearby, another woman begins grinding grain between two heavy stones. The motion is steady. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The soft grinding sound soon becomes one of the first familiar noises of every morning. It echoes quietly from house to house until the whole village seems to breathe with the same slow rhythm. Grinding grain is hard work. The upper stone feels heavy after only a short time. Arms become tired. Shoulders ache. Yet this task has always been part of daily life. Without flour there is no bread. Without bread the day's labor becomes much harder. Each family understands this connection. The effort is accepted without complaint. Little by little, the flour gathers in a shallow bowl. Water is added carefully. Hands begin kneading the dough. The mixture changes beneath gentle pressure until it becomes smooth and ready for baking. Children begin waking as the smell of fresh bread slowly fills the morning air. One little girl rubs her eyes before following her mother into the courtyard. She watches every movement with quiet curiosity. The fire, the dough, the warm oven. She has seen these tasks every day of her life. Still, she enjoys watching them. One day they will become her own responsibilities. For now, they are simply part of morning. Across the narrow lane, another household prepares in much the same way. A father washes his face using cool water from a clay jar. He ties a simple linen kilt around his waist before checking his sandals. One strap has begun to loosen. He sits upon a low stool and repairs it with a small leather cord. The repair takes only a few moments. When finished, he nods with quiet satisfaction. Another day of walking lies ahead. Comfort matters. Nearby, his oldest son sharpens the edge of a bronze sickle. Not because it has become dull overnight, but because small moments of maintenance prevent larger problems later. The blade catches the first faint light of dawn. Its polished edge reflects the pale sky. The boy smiles. He enjoys learning these practical skills. His father notices but says nothing. Some lessons need no words. The village slowly awakens. Smoke rises from more ovens. Doors open one by one. Neighbors greet each other with familiar smiles. Nobody appears surprised to see anyone else. The same people have shared these mornings for years. Their lives overlap like woven threads. One family lends a basket to another. Someone offers fresh dates gathered yesterday. An elderly widow receives help carrying water without needing to ask. These quiet acts of kindness happen so naturally that they hardly seem remarkable. Yet together they help hold the village together. No one lives entirely alone. As sunlight finally reaches the tops of the palm trees, the Nile begins glowing with soft gold. Mist rises gently from the cooler water. Fishing boats, tied securely along the bank overnight, rock almost imperceptibly against their ropes. Several fishermen arrive carrying neatly folded nets across their shoulders. They move quietly. Morning always feels peaceful beside the river. Before pushing away from shore, one fisherman pauses. He looks across the calm water. The opposite bank lies beneath the growing light. Reeds sway gently. A heron stands perfectly still, watching for fish beneath the surface. The fisherman smiles. He has seen the same view thousands of times. It has never become ordinary. He unties his boat. The wood creaks softly. With one careful push, the small vessel begins drifting away from shore. Soon the paddle dips into the water with slow, even strokes. Ripples spread behind him before disappearing once again. Farther inland, farmers gather at the edge of the fields. The cool morning offers the best hours for heavy labor. They know the heat will arrive soon enough. For now, the air remains gentle. Oxen are guided toward wooden plows. The animals move patiently, already familiar with the work that awaits. Leather harnesses are checked carefully. Ropes are adjusted. Nothing is rushed. Every step follows the rhythm established by generations before them. One farmer kneels beside a young patch of grain. Tiny drops of dew still rest upon the leaves. He touches them lightly. Within another hour the sun will dry them completely. For these few quiet moments, however, the field feels fresh and alive. Birds search for insects between the rows. A rabbit darts briefly through taller grass before disappearing. The farmer notices these small signs without interrupting his work. Nature and labor exist together here. Neither disturbs the other. The first rays of sunlight slowly spread across the valley. Mudbrick homes glow with warm color. Palm trees cast long shadows over dusty roads. The smell of fresh bread drifts toward the fields as families finish breakfast together. Simple meals fill waiting stomachs. Bread. Dates. Perhaps onions. Sometimes cheese made from goat's milk. Cool water poured from clay jars. Enough to begin another full day. No one expects a feast. Simple food shared among family brings its own quiet satisfaction. Children laugh softly. Parents exchange a few gentle words. Then one by one they stand. The baskets are lifted. The tools are gathered. Sandals brush against the earth. The village slowly empties once more as familiar paths lead workers back toward the river, the fields, the workshops, and every place where another peaceful day in ancient Egypt patiently waits to unfold beneath the rising sun. The sun rises slowly above the eastern horizon, painting the broad waters of the Nile with gentle shades of gold. The coolness of dawn still lingers in the air, although everyone knows it will not last for long. Morning is the most welcoming part of the day. The light is soft, the breeze is kind, and even the birds seem to sing with calm confidence as they glide above the river. The village has become fully awake. Narrow footpaths fill with familiar footsteps. Sandals brush against dry earth that has already been walked smooth by countless generations. Every path leads somewhere important. One winds toward the fields. Another follows the riverbank. A wider road reaches the nearby market where merchants will soon arrange their goods beneath woven awnings. Nothing feels hurried. The people know these roads well. There is comfort in walking a path that asks for no decisions. One young farmer walks beside his father. They carry wooden hoes across their shoulders while saying very little. They have already spoken many times before about today's work. The irrigation channels need clearing. A section of barley must be inspected. Several baskets of vegetables should be gathered before the strongest heat arrives. There is no need to repeat the plan. Instead, they simply enjoy the quiet company of walking together. The father notices the changing color of the sky. The son watches a flock of white birds lifting from the marshes. Both observations are shared silently. As they reach the fields, they pause for a moment before beginning. Morning sunlight stretches across the rich black soil left behind by the Nile's yearly flood. Tiny drops of moisture still cling to the young plants. The earth feels cool beneath bare feet. It will not remain that way for long. Soon the sun will warm every stone and every patch of ground. But for these first moments, the land feels peaceful, almost as though it is waking alongside the people who care for it. The father kneels to examine a row of grain. He gently rubs a few stalks between his fingers. Years of experience allow him to notice small changes that others might overlook. A slight difference in color. A tiny insect hidden beneath a leaf. Soil that has become just a little too dry. He does not rush his inspection. The land rewards patience. Beside another field, several women harvest vegetables growing near a narrow irrigation ditch. Their woven baskets rest nearby, gradually filling with onions, beans, and leafy greens. Every vegetable is handled carefully. Nothing is tossed carelessly. The food they gather today will appear on family tables tonight. Perhaps some will be traded tomorrow. Perhaps a few vegetables will be dried for later use. Every harvest carries many possibilities. As the women work, they speak quietly with one another. The conversation drifts naturally from one subject to another. A child has learned to weave a simple basket. An elderly neighbor is feeling stronger after several days of illness. A goat wandered into someone's garden yesterday afternoon. The stories are ordinary. That is exactly what makes them comforting. Life is often remembered through small moments rather than remarkable ones. Not far away, a young girl follows her older sister toward the river with two empty clay jars. The larger jar rests confidently upon the older sister's head. The younger girl carries a smaller one in both hands. She walks carefully over the uneven ground, concentrating with all her attention. Every few steps she glances toward her sister. She wants to carry the jar just as gracefully. She is still learning. The older sister notices but says nothing. Some lessons are best discovered through quiet practice. When they reach the riverbank, morning mist still hovers above the water. The Nile moves with its familiar calm. A fisherman nearby untangles his net while another quietly pushes his boat away from shore. The sisters kneel beside the water. They lower each jar slowly, allowing cool river water to flow inside without stirring too much mud from the bottom. Gentle circles spread across the surface. The reflections of reeds bend and shimmer before becoming still again. For a moment neither sister speaks. The river itself seems enough. Its quiet presence fills the silence comfortably. As they begin walking home, the jars feel much heavier. The younger girl struggles slightly. Without saying a word, her sister reaches over and steadies the smaller jar with one hand. They continue together. Neither one walks ahead. Back in the village, the workshops gradually fill with workers. The potter arrives early, as he usually does. He enjoys the quiet hours before many customers appear. His hands are already stained with damp clay from yesterday's work. The wheel waits patiently in the center of the room. He places a fresh lump of clay upon it. For a moment, nothing happens. He simply rests his hands on the cool earth. Then the wheel begins turning. Slowly. Steadily. The clay rises beneath gentle fingers. A simple water jar begins to take shape. Its walls grow thinner with every careful movement. The potter's eyes remain fixed upon the spinning vessel. His breathing settles into the same slow rhythm as the turning wheel. The work demands attention. But it also brings peace. There is something deeply satisfying about creating a useful object from plain earth gathered beside the river. Nearby, another artisan carves wood into the frame of a stool. Small curls of wood fall quietly onto the floor. The smell of fresh timber fills the workshop. Every cut is deliberate. There is no reason to hurry. The stool will likely serve one family for many years. Perhaps even longer. A child may one day inherit it without ever knowing who shaped it. Good craftsmanship often becomes invisible over time. People notice the object. They rarely think about the patient hands that created it. In another corner of the village, a scribe unrolls fresh sheets of papyrus. His work is very different from the labor taking place in the fields, yet it also requires endurance. He sits for long hours. His shoulders gradually stiffen. His fingers become tired from holding the reed brush. Still, he continues writing carefully. Each line must remain neat. Each number must be accurate. The records he keeps help organize grain, tools, supplies, and taxes. Much of daily life depends upon careful memory. Written words preserve that memory. Outside the workshop, the market slowly begins to awaken. Merchants arrange their goods with quiet pride. Baskets filled with figs stand beside bundles of fresh herbs. Clay lamps catch the growing sunlight. Woven mats are rolled open. Simple necklaces made from shells and polished stones are placed carefully where customers may easily see them. People arrive gradually rather than all at once. A woman exchanges grain for cooking oil. An older man examines a new basket woven from papyrus reeds. Two neighbors stop to greet each other before continuing toward different stalls. The marketplace is more than a place to buy and sell. It is where news travels. It is where familiar faces meet. It is where ordinary life quietly gathers for a little while each morning. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the air once again. A baker removes warm loaves from a clay oven using a long wooden paddle. The crust has turned a rich golden color. Steam rises gently into the morning light. People passing nearby smile almost without thinking. Fresh bread carries a familiar comfort. Children eagerly wait while their parents purchase a loaf. Sometimes they receive a small piece before reaching home. The warm bread feels almost too hot to hold. Yet they cradle it carefully, enjoying its simple warmth in their hands. Not every worker remains in one place throughout the day. Messengers travel between villages carrying letters or spoken news. They walk steadily beneath the growing sun, following dusty roads that have connected communities for generations. The journey is long. The pace remains calm. Occasionally they stop beneath the shade of an acacia tree to drink cool water from a clay flask. Then they continue onward. Every traveler knows that the road itself asks for patience. Along one narrow path, a merchant leads two donkeys loaded with baskets. The animals walk without complaint. Their steady footsteps stir small clouds of dust that quickly settle behind them. The merchant hums softly to himself. He has walked this same route many times before. He knows where the road becomes uneven. He knows which trees offer the deepest shade. He knows where the sweetest drinking water can usually be found. Familiarity turns long journeys into gentle routines. Meanwhile, the sun continues climbing higher. The cool freshness of dawn slowly begins to disappear. Workers pause occasionally to wipe perspiration from their faces. Shadows shorten. The bright light reflects from pale stone walls and dusty roads. The warmth settles across the valley like a heavy blanket. Even so, the rhythm of labor remains steady. No one races against the heat. Instead, people adjust naturally. Their movements become slower. Their breathing becomes more measured. Experience has taught them how to conserve energy during the longest hours of the day. An elderly farmer pauses beside an irrigation channel. He lowers himself carefully onto a flat stone beneath the shade of a date palm. His grandson joins him, carrying two small cups carved from wood. The boy pours cool water from a clay jar. Neither speaks immediately. They simply drink. The water tastes fresh. A gentle breeze moves through the palm leaves overhead. Somewhere nearby, bees wander among small white blossoms growing beside the canal. The old man finally smiles. He points toward the fields stretching before them. "When I was your age," he says softly, "these same trees were already old." The boy looks toward the palms with quiet wonder. The trees have watched generations come and go. They have shaded fathers, sons, daughters, and grandchildren. They have witnessed harvest after harvest beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The old man says nothing more. He does not need to. The silence that follows feels just as meaningful. Together they rise. The cups are returned to the basket. The tools are lifted once again. And beneath the slowly warming sun, surrounded by the quiet songs of birds, the whisper of water through narrow canals, and the familiar scent of rich river soil, another peaceful morning continues to unfold across the timeless valley of the Nile, where work and daily life remain gently woven together, one calm moment after another. As the morning quietly matures, the light across the Nile Valley changes almost without anyone noticing. The gentle gold of sunrise slowly becomes a brighter white, and the long shadows stretching across the fields begin to shorten. The cool breeze that drifted through the village before dawn grows softer with every passing hour. The warmth returns. It always does. No one seems surprised by it. The people of Egypt have spent their entire lives beneath this familiar sky. They know that every morning carries within it the promise of another hot afternoon. Their work has been shaped around that simple truth for generations. In the barley fields, rows of workers continue their steady rhythm. A man bends low to pull small weeds from between young plants. He does not pull quickly. Each movement is careful. His fingers know the difference between a weed and a tender stalk of grain almost without looking. Beside him, his wife gathers loose bundles that were cut earlier in the week. She ties them neatly with strips of flax before placing them into a growing stack. Neither speaks very much. There is no silence between them that feels empty. Years of working side by side have created a quiet understanding. Sometimes one reaches for a tool before the other asks. Sometimes they pause together at exactly the same moment to straighten their backs and look across the green fields. Even rest follows a shared rhythm. Not far away, several boys guide a pair of oxen through freshly prepared earth. The animals move with slow confidence, their heavy hooves pressing deep into the soft soil left behind by the Nile's flood waters. The boys are still learning. Their fathers walk a short distance behind, offering gentle instructions. Keep the rope steady. Let them find their pace. There is no need to pull. The advice is calm. No one raises a voice. The oxen understand patience better than force. The boys slowly begin to understand that lesson as well. Above them, small birds circle lazily through the warm air. Occasionally one lands behind the plow, searching for insects uncovered by the fresh earth. The farmers notice them but continue working. Birds have always followed the plows. Some things never change. Closer to the river, a group of fishermen has found a quiet stretch of water where reeds grow tall along the shoreline. Their boats drift gently with the current. The men speak only when necessary. Most of the morning is spent listening. They listen to the soft splash of paddles. They listen for fish moving beneath the surface. They listen to the wind passing through the reeds. One fisherman slowly lifts his net. Water pours from the woven cords in shimmering streams before falling back into the river. Several silver fish flash briefly in the sunlight. He smiles with quiet satisfaction. It is enough. He carefully removes each fish, placing them into a woven basket lined with damp reeds to keep them cool. Nothing is wasted. Every catch will feed someone before the day is over. A little farther downstream, an older fisherman sits alone beneath the shade of his small sail. His beard has turned almost completely white. His hands are deeply lined from decades of rowing, knotting rope, and lifting nets. He has spent most of his life on this river. He knows its moods. He knows where the current runs faster after the flood. He knows where fish gather when the weather becomes warmer. He knows which sandbanks appear during the dry months. These lessons were never written on papyrus. They were learned one quiet day at a time. He dips one hand into the water as his boat drifts slowly forward. The river feels cool against his skin. For a brief moment he simply enjoys the feeling. Work does not always have to be difficult. Sometimes it allows small moments of peace. Back in the village, the workshops have become busier. The steady tapping of stone chisels echoes softly through narrow streets. A carpenter smooths the surface of a wooden chest using a bronze blade. Nearby, a basket weaver sits cross-legged beneath a shaded awning. Fresh papyrus reeds lie beside him in neat bundles. One by one he bends each reed into place. The basket grows almost unnoticed. His fingers move with such confidence that they rarely hesitate. Watching him work feels almost like watching water flow. The pattern repeats again and again. Over. Under. Across. Pull gently. Tighten. Begin again. A young apprentice sits nearby. He watches every movement carefully. Occasionally the older craftsman pauses long enough for the boy to try weaving a few rows himself. The first attempts are uneven. Some reeds slip out of place. Others bend too sharply. The apprentice sighs quietly. The older man simply smiles. He untangles the mistake without a single word of criticism. Then he begins again. Slowly. Patiently. Learning takes time. No one expects perfect hands on the first day. Inside another workshop, two women prepare linen for dyeing. The woven cloth has already been washed and dried. Now it hangs across wooden frames while natural pigments are carefully mixed in shallow clay bowls. The colors are gentle. Soft reds from earth. Warm yellows from plants. Deep blues gathered from precious materials. Most clothing remains its natural pale color, but occasionally families choose to decorate special garments worn during festivals or important gatherings. Even simple beauty has a place in ordinary life. The women dip small pieces of cloth into the prepared dyes. They lift them slowly, allowing excess color to drip back into the bowls. Then the linen is spread beneath the morning sun. The breeze catches the edges, making the fabric ripple gently like the sails of boats upon the Nile. Across the market, merchants welcome more visitors as the day continues. The smell of herbs mixes with fresh bread, onions, garlic, and ripe figs. Clay jars stand in neat rows. Bronze knives reflect bright sunlight. Children walk beside their parents, sometimes stopping to admire brightly polished beads or carefully carved wooden toys. One little boy discovers a toy carved into the shape of a small bird. He gently turns it over in his hands. The merchant smiles kindly. The boy's mother thanks him before leading her son onward. Perhaps another day they will return. There is no disappointment. Looking is part of the market as well. Near the center of the square, a storyteller has gathered a small audience. He is not telling tales of mighty kings today. Instead, he speaks of an old farmer who learned the value of sharing water during a dry season. The story unfolds slowly. Children listen with wide eyes. Adults smile quietly. The lesson is familiar. Kindness often returns when least expected. When the story ends, no one applauds. People simply nod before continuing with their day. The tale settles gently into memory. Not far away, a donkey patiently waits beneath the shade of a palm tree. Large baskets hang from either side of its back. The animal flicks its ears as flies drift lazily around its head. Its owner finishes speaking with another merchant before returning. He gently pats the donkey's neck. Together they continue toward the next village. Their pace is unhurried. The road is long. There is no reason to exhaust either man or animal before midday. As the sun climbs higher still, the brightness begins to soften the colors of the landscape. The green fields remain vivid near the river, but beyond them the desert glows in pale shades of gold and cream. Heat begins rising from the sandy ground in delicate waves. In the distance, the air seems almost to shimmer. Travelers know this sight well. It is another familiar part of Egyptian afternoons. Along the irrigation canals, workers inspect the gentle flow of water. One section has become blocked by loose reeds carried downstream. A farmer kneels and carefully clears the channel with his hands. Immediately the water begins moving freely once again. He watches it for several moments to be certain everything is flowing correctly. Then he stands. His knees are dusty. His hands are wet with cool river water. He wipes them against his linen garment before continuing toward the next channel. The work is repetitive. That is precisely why it matters. Fields remain healthy because someone notices small problems before they become large ones. The people of Egypt understand that daily life is built upon countless small acts of attention. A cracked wall repaired before it falls. A loose roof beam secured before the rainy season. A dull blade sharpened before harvest. A canal cleared before crops begin to dry. Great achievements often begin with quiet maintenance. By late morning the sounds across the valley begin to change. The birds sing a little less. The insects grow louder. The breeze becomes warmer. Workers naturally slow their movements. Nobody speaks about the heat. There is no need. Everyone feels it equally. An elderly woman walking home from the market adjusts the linen cloth covering her head. She pauses beneath the broad shade of a sycamore tree. Several other travelers are already resting there. No one asks permission to share the shade. It belongs to everyone. Clay water jars are passed from hand to hand. Each person drinks only what they need. Then the jar continues to the next traveler. Quiet gratitude is enough. After a few peaceful minutes, one person stands. Then another. Soon the little gathering disappears, each traveler continuing along a different dusty road. The tree remains behind, waiting patiently to offer shade again tomorrow. Across the Nile Valley, beneath the bright Egyptian sun, work continues with calm determination. Hands remain busy. Voices remain gentle. The river flows beside them with its endless, comforting rhythm. And little by little, as the morning slowly gives way to the first heavy warmth of midday, another ordinary chapter of ancient Egyptian life unfolds with the same quiet grace that has carried generations through the timeless seasons of the Nile. By the time the sun reaches its highest place in the sky, the entire Nile Valley seems to glow beneath a blanket of bright white light. The shadows that stretched so long across the fields only a few hours ago have almost disappeared. The mud-brick homes reflect the warmth they gathered through the morning, and the stone paths beneath countless sandals feel noticeably hotter with every passing step. The afternoon has arrived once again. No one greets it with surprise. Every person living along the Nile has known this rhythm since childhood. Morning offers cool air and steady work. Midday asks for patience. Even the animals understand the changing pace. The oxen move a little more slowly now. Goats gather beneath trees where patches of shade remain. Dogs curl beside walls that shelter them from the strongest sunlight. Birds become quieter. Many settle among the reeds until cooler hours return. The land itself seems to take a deep, slow breath. In one field, a group of farmers finishes the last row before pausing for their midday rest. Wooden hoes are placed neatly together. Baskets are turned upside down to keep dust from gathering inside. A water jar wrapped in damp cloth rests beneath a broad sycamore tree. The cloth has helped keep the water pleasantly cool despite the rising heat. One by one, the workers gather beneath the shade. Nobody rushes toward the food. They have learned that even eating feels better when done slowly. A woman unwraps several round loaves of bread baked before sunrise. The crust is firm, but the inside remains soft. She breaks one loaf into equal pieces and quietly passes them around. Another farmer places onions onto a woven mat. Someone else opens a small basket filled with dates. A fisherman visiting relatives has brought dried fish from yesterday's catch. There is enough for everyone. No one counts who receives the largest piece. Meals shared after honest work carry a quiet feeling of fairness. The tree above them gently stirs. A light breeze moves through its leaves, creating dancing patterns of sunlight across the ground. For a few peaceful moments, no one speaks. The only sounds are birds hidden among the branches, the distant splash of water flowing through irrigation channels, and the quiet chewing of bread. After a while, conversation begins naturally. An older farmer remembers a flood that came many years ago. He was still a young man then. The river had risen slowly that season, spreading across the fields with unusual patience. Everyone worried that the harvest might be poor. But as the weeks passed, the water remained just long enough to leave behind rich black soil. The crops that followed became some of the finest anyone could remember. He smiles softly as he tells the story. The younger workers listen with interest. Not because the story is exciting, but because it reminds them that the Nile has always lived according to its own quiet rhythm. Sometimes it asks people to wait. Sometimes it rewards their patience. Nearby, one of the younger men leans back against the rough trunk of the tree. He closes his eyes for only a few moments. The shade feels wonderfully cool. His hands still carry the scent of fresh earth. His shoulders ache gently from lifting baskets throughout the morning. It is not an unpleasant feeling. It is the familiar tiredness that comes from useful work. Within minutes, he opens his eyes again. Rest has done its work. He smiles at the others before taking another drink of water. Not far away, several women have gathered beside an irrigation canal after finishing part of their morning's work. Their baskets are nearly full of vegetables ready to be carried home later. For now, they sit together beneath a simple shelter made from reeds tied to wooden poles. One woman removes a small weaving project from her basket. Even while resting, her hands enjoy staying busy. She slowly guides strips of papyrus over and under each other, creating the base of a new basket. The others watch for a while before one asks a quiet question about a pattern she has forgotten. The answer comes with a gentle demonstration rather than a long explanation. Knowledge moves easily between experienced hands. No one guards these skills. Sharing them helps everyone. A little girl sits nearby, tracing shapes into the soft earth with a small stick. She draws boats, palm trees, birds flying over the river. Her grandmother notices the drawings and smiles. She remembers making similar pictures herself many years ago. Without saying anything, she gently adds a tiny fish beneath one of the boats. The little girl laughs quietly. Then she draws another. For a few peaceful minutes, grandmother and granddaughter continue adding small details to the dusty picture. Soon the wind will erase every line. Neither of them minds. The moment itself is enough. Along the riverbank, fishermen have also paused for the hottest part of the day. Their boats are tied to sturdy wooden posts driven into the muddy shore. Nets hang across low branches where they can dry in the sunlight. The fishermen sit with their feet near the water. One slowly repairs a tear in his net. The break is no longer than his hand. Still, he gives it his full attention. He threads fresh cord through the worn opening with steady fingers. Every knot is pulled snug. A strong net lasts many seasons. A neglected one may fail when it is needed most. Another fisherman dips a small cup into the Nile. He pours water over his hands before washing his face. The coolness is refreshing. Tiny drops fall back into the river. The current carries them away immediately. The Nile asks for nothing in return. It simply continues flowing, as it always has. Nearby, reeds sway gently. A pair of ducks glides quietly across a calm stretch of water. Dragonflies skim so close to the surface that their reflections seem to dance beneath them. The fishermen watch these small movements without speaking. There is comfort in simply observing the world around them. Time feels slower beside the river. Back in the village, the marketplace has grown quieter. Many customers have already returned home before the strongest heat arrived. Merchants remain beneath woven awnings where shade offers welcome relief. Some rearrange their goods. Others share bread and conversation with neighboring stall owners. An elderly merchant carefully wipes dust from several polished stone beads. He has sold jewelry here for many years. He knows many of his customers by name. Some first visited his stall as children holding their parents' hands. Now they arrive with children of their own. The years pass gently in places like this. Familiar faces become part of daily life. A baker finishes the final batch of bread for the afternoon. The clay oven has been glowing since before sunrise. Now its work is nearly done. Using a long wooden paddle, he removes the last warm loaves and places them onto woven trays. The smell drifts through nearby streets. Several children passing by stop for just a moment. One little boy closes his eyes and smiles as he breathes in the familiar scent. It reminds him of home. His mother notices and quietly laughs. She promises there will be fresh bread waiting when they return. Inside a cool mud brick house nearby, an elderly woman sits spinning flax into thread. The room remains pleasantly shaded. Light enters only through a small opening high in the wall. Dust floats lazily through the narrow beam of sunlight. Everything inside feels calm. Her spinning tool turns slowly between practiced fingers. The soft twist of flax becomes smooth thread. The movement is gentle, steady, almost like breathing. She has repeated it so many thousands of times that her hands scarcely require thought. Her granddaughter sits beside her, watching every motion with patient attention. Occasionally the older woman pauses. She places the spindle into the child's hands. Together they begin another length of thread. The first attempt becomes uneven. The little girl frowns. The grandmother simply smiles. She gently untwists the fibers. Then they begin again. There is no hurry. Learning belongs to time. Outside, the afternoon stretches peacefully across the valley. The heat remains strong, but people have learned to move with it rather than against it. Tasks become smaller. Steps become slower. Voices become softer. Nobody wastes strength. Even the donkeys seem to understand. A merchant leading two heavily loaded animals chooses the shaded side of the road whenever possible. Every few minutes he pauses, allowing them to drink from a clay trough filled earlier that morning. He gently strokes one donkey's neck while it drinks. The animal flicks its ears contentedly before continuing the journey. Kindness often appears in simple actions. No grand gesture is needed. Far beyond the village, where green farmland slowly gives way to the open desert, warm winds move gently across endless dunes. The sand shifts little by little, creating delicate patterns that will disappear by tomorrow. The desert feels quiet beneath the afternoon sun. Yet it is never completely still. Small lizards dart between scattered rocks. A desert fox sleeps inside the cool shade of its den. High above, a hawk circles patiently, riding invisible currents of warm air. Life exists here too. It simply moves more carefully. Back along the fertile banks of the Nile, the first signs of afternoon's passing begin to appear. The sunlight changes almost too slowly to notice. The shadows beneath palm trees grow just a little longer. A faint breeze returns from the north. Workers lift their faces toward it with quiet appreciation. The hardest heat will not last forever. It never does. Soon the fields will fill once more with steady footsteps. The boats will leave the riverbank again. Children will laugh in the village streets as the day gently turns toward evening. But for now, beneath the patient shade of trees, beside the slow and faithful river, and within the cool shelter of humble mud-brick homes, Egypt rests for a little while, gathering quiet strength before another peaceful stretch of work carries the day gently onward. Little by little, the afternoon begins to soften. No one notices the change all at once. It arrives so gently that it seems as though the valley itself has taken a long, quiet breath. The fierce brightness that covered every field only an hour ago begins to lose a little of its sharpness. The light remains warm, but it no longer presses down with quite the same weight. A breeze returns from the north. It carries with it the cool scent of the Nile. The reeds beside the river sway together, making a soft whisper that blends with the slow murmur of flowing water. Palm fronds answer with their own gentle rustling, and for the first time since morning, birds begin calling to one another again. The afternoon is waking from its quiet pause. Across the fields, farmers rise from the shade where they rested during the hottest hours. Some stretch their backs before lifting their tools once more. Others brush dust from their linen garments. A few finish the last pieces of bread they saved from the midday meal before taking a long drink of cool water. No one rushes to begin again. They know there are still many hours before darkness. There is enough time. One elderly farmer carefully picks up his wooden hoe. The handle has grown smooth after years of use. His hands fit around it as naturally as they would around the hand of an old friend. The wood carries tiny marks left by countless seasons. Each scratch tells a quiet story. A year when the harvest was especially good. A season when the floods came late. A day when the tool slipped against hidden stone. The farmer notices none of these marks consciously anymore. They have simply become part of the object. Just as his own wrinkles have become part of him. Nearby, his grandson shoulders a woven basket. It is lighter than the baskets carried by the adults, but heavy enough for him to feel proud. He walks beside his grandfather without speaking. Their footsteps fall into the same steady rhythm. Dust rises gently around their sandals before settling back onto the path. The fields welcome them once again. The irrigation channels sparkle beneath the afternoon light. Water slips quietly through narrow banks built carefully by many hands over many years. The sound is soft. Almost like whispered conversation. A young woman kneels beside one of the channels. She notices a handful of reeds drifting slowly toward a narrow opening where they might block the flow. Without hesitation she reaches into the cool water and lifts them away. The current immediately moves more freely. She watches for another moment. Everything flows smoothly again. It is a small task. One that few people will ever notice. Yet tomorrow's crops may depend upon moments exactly like this. Much of Egyptian life is built upon quiet acts that never become famous. They simply become necessary. Farther along the riverbank, several fishermen untie their boats once more. The hottest hours have passed. Fish begin moving again beneath the calmer surface of the water. One man pushes gently against the muddy shore with a long wooden pole. The boat drifts silently into the current. Another fisherman raises a simple linen sail. The breeze catches it immediately. The cloth fills slowly. The boat glides northward almost without effort. The men smile to themselves. There is satisfaction in letting the river do part of the work. The Nile has always been a partner rather than an obstacle. It asks people to understand it. In return, it offers life. The boats move quietly across the broad water. Their reflections stretch beneath them like long shadows. Occasionally a paddle dips into the river. Small circles spread outward before disappearing into the endless current. Nearby, a boy sits at the front of one boat watching the water closely. His father has begun teaching him to notice the smallest changes. A ripple moving against the current. The sudden leap of a fish. The movement of birds gathering above deeper water. These signs cannot be hurried. They reveal themselves only to patient eyes. The boy watches carefully. He wants to learn. His father says very little. There is no need. The river is teaching alongside him. Back in the village, the workshops become busy once more. The potter's wheel begins turning again after its midday rest. Fresh clay waits beneath damp cloth to keep it from drying too quickly. The potter places another piece at the center of the wheel. His foot begins its familiar rhythm. Round and round. Steady. Unhurried. The clay slowly rises beneath gentle hands. First it becomes a thick cylinder. Then a narrow neck begins to appear. The walls grow thinner. The mouth widens slightly. Before long, another water jar stands ready to dry in the afternoon sun. The potter looks at it for only a moment. Then he reaches for another lump of clay. His satisfaction comes from the work itself. Not from admiring what has already been finished. Across the lane, a carpenter sands the edge of a wooden chest using rough stone. Fine dust settles across his arms. The scent of cedar fills the small workshop. Outside, children pause briefly to watch. They enjoy seeing curls of wood fall gently to the floor. The carpenter smiles at their curiosity. He remembers watching craftsmen with the same quiet fascination when he was their age. Time has a gentle way of repeating itself. The children eventually wander away toward another corner of the village. Soon they are chasing each other between mud-brick walls, their laughter rising softly into the warm afternoon air. Their game has no clear beginning. No clear ending. One child pretends to be a boatman crossing the Nile. Another gathers small stones and arranges them into tiny houses. A little girl carefully draws palm trees into the dust using a reed. Before long, a breeze brushes across the ground and begins erasing the picture. She simply smiles and starts drawing another. Nothing needs to last forever to bring joy. Near one doorway, an elderly woman sits upon a low wooden stool weaving a reed mat. Her fingers move slowly now. Age has made them less quick than before. Yet every movement remains careful. Every strand finds its proper place. Beside her rests a sleeping cat curled tightly in the shade. From time to time, the woman pauses to look toward the street. Neighbors pass by. Some offer quiet greetings. Others stop for only a few moments to exchange news. No conversation feels rushed. The afternoon itself seems to encourage slower words. Inside one home, a young mother begins preparing the evening meal earlier than usual. She washes vegetables gathered that morning. The cool water splashes gently inside a large clay bowl. She slices onions with a bronze knife worn smooth from years of sharpening. Nearby, dough rises beneath a cloth. Soon fresh bread will bake once again. The familiar smell will drip through the village just as it does every evening. Her youngest child sits nearby stacking smooth river stones into tiny towers. Each tower grows taller before slowly falling over. The child laughs softly every time. The mother smiles without looking away from her work. She has heard that gentle laugh many times today. She hopes to hear it many more tomorrow. Outside, merchants begin preparing for the final hours of trading. A basket of figs is turned so the ripest fruit rests on top. Clay lamps are arranged neatly in rows. Bundles of fresh herbs release their pleasant scent whenever someone walks past. Customers arrive at an easy pace. There is no crowd. No shouting. Most people know exactly what they need. A loaf of bread. A handful of onions. Fresh fish. Perhaps a new length of rope. A repaired basket. Trade flows as calmly as conversation. An elderly merchant wraps a small purchase inside woven papyrus before handing it to a young couple. The husband thanks him warmly. The merchant smiles. He remembers selling grain to the young man's father many years ago. Generations pass quietly through places like this. Children grow. Parents grow older. The marketplace remains. Along one dusty road leading toward the village, several donkeys return from nearby farms carrying sacks of grain. Their pace is steady. Their ears flick lazily at buzzing flies. The men walking beside them speak only occasionally. Most of the journey passes in peaceful silence. The road itself is familiar enough to require little attention. Each bend, each stone, each patch of shade has been known for years. Beyond them, the wide fields glow beneath softer sunlight. The grain sways gently whenever the breeze passes. White birds glide low above the canals before settling quietly among the reeds. Dragonflies shimmer above the water. The valley seems almost to exhale. The hardest part of the day has passed. The evening has not yet arrived. This gentle hour between heat and sunset belongs to quiet work. To small conversations. To patient hands finishing familiar tasks. To children playing in dusty lanes. To boats drifting peacefully across the Nile. To bread slowly rising before the evening meal. And beneath the endless Egyptian sky, where the river continues its timeless journey between fertile fields and silent desert, another ordinary afternoon unfolds with calm grace, reminding every family that life is not measured only by great moments, but by thousands of peaceful hours lived gently together, one day after another. The afternoon slowly begins its gentle journey toward evening. The sun is still high, but it has started its quiet descent across the western sky. The bright white light that covered the valley only a short while ago softens into warmer shades of gold. Long before anyone notices the changing colors, they feel the difference in the air. The breeze becomes a little kinder. The weight of the heat begins to lift. Across the fertile land beside the Nile, people continue their work with calm and steady hands. There is no race to finish before sunset. There is only the familiar understanding that every task completed today will make tomorrow a little easier. One farmer walks slowly along the edge of his field. He carries no heavy basket now. Instead, he simply looks. His eyes move across the rows of barley, pausing here and there to notice the smallest details. A patch of earth that may need more water tomorrow. A young plant standing a little taller than the others. A tiny bird searching for seeds near the edge of the field. He kneels for a moment and lets a handful of rich soil fall gently through his fingers. It feels soft. Cooler than it did at midday. The earth has begun to release the heat it gathered beneath the afternoon sun. He smiles quietly. The land has cared for his family for many years. In return, he has learned to care for it with patience. Nearby, several women gather bundles of flax that have been drying beneath the sun. The pale fibers catch the golden light, almost glowing against the darker earth. One woman gently shakes loose dust from each bundle before tying it neatly with cord. Another carefully counts the finished bundles. Not because anyone has ordered her to do so, but because careful habits make every season easier. Order brings peace. Nothing is misplaced. Nothing is forgotten. The bundles are stacked inside a wooden cart waiting beneath the shade of an acacia tree. The ox standing beside it flicks its tail lazily. It has worked since morning. Now it enjoys the cooler breeze that moves gently across the open fields. The animal lowers its head to graze while it waits. There is no impatience. Only quiet rest. Farther along the riverbank, fishermen continue following the gentle current downstream. Their nets drift beneath the surface like long curtains moving through clear water. One young fisherman has joined his uncle for the day. He has spent many mornings watching from the shore. Today he has been invited into the boat. Everything feels new. He studies every knot tied into the ropes. He notices how his uncle listens more than he speaks. He wonders why the older man sometimes waits several minutes before lifting the net. Finally, unable to contain his curiosity, he quietly asks, "How do you know when it's time?" The older fisherman smiles. He looks toward the river instead of answering immediately. After another peaceful moment he says softly, "The river will tell you if you learn to be still." The boy nods. He does not fully understand yet. But he will remember those words. Years from now, sitting in another boat beneath another quiet sky, they may suddenly make perfect sense. The boat continues drifting. No more explanation is needed. Back in the village, the sound of grinding stones once again echoes through several homes. Evening bread is being prepared. The heavy upper stones move in slow circles. Grain becomes flour little by little. The work asks for steady arms. A young woman wipes a few loose strands of hair from her forehead before adding another handful of grain. Her daughter watches closely. She has begun helping with smaller tasks. Today she measures the grain into shallow bowls. Tomorrow she may help knead the dough. In time, every movement will become as natural as breathing. The smell of fresh flour fills the small courtyard. Nearby, another family prepares vegetables gathered earlier that day. Green herbs are chopped with careful hands. Onions are peeled. Clay pots are washed and filled with water drawn from the Nile during the cool morning hours. Simple meals require many small steps. Each one matters. Inside another home, an elderly grandfather sits beside the doorway repairing a pair of woven sandals. The straps have loosened after many seasons of walking dusty roads. He threads fresh leather through the worn holes with patient fingers. The sandals may never look new again. That is not the goal. They only need to remain useful. He finishes the final knot. Then he gently presses the sole against the ground to test its strength. Satisfied, he places the sandals beside the door. Tomorrow they will carry someone across another ordinary day. Nothing more is required. Nearby, children continue playing as the afternoon slowly cools. Some gather smooth stones from beside the road. They invent games whose rules change every few minutes. Others race toward the riverbank before stopping suddenly to watch a flock of birds rise from the reeds. Their laughter drifts through the warm air. Adults smile as they hear it. The sounds of children belong to every generation. Many parents quietly remember making the very same noises long ago. The village itself seems to glow beneath the late afternoon sun. The mudbrick walls take on a warm golden color. Palm trees cast longer shadows across the dusty streets. Small patches of light dance across courtyards as leaves move gently in the breeze. A woman hangs freshly washed linen across a rope stretched between two wooden posts. The cloth sways softly. Soon it will be dry. Its clean scent mixes with the smell of baking bread, warm earth, and distant river water. These familiar scents become the memory of home. They greet people every evening. They quietly welcome everyone back from the day's work. At the edge of the marketplace, merchants begin preparing for the final customers before sunset. One carefully folds colorful cloth and places it inside a wooden chest. Another counts small clay jars that remain unsold. Nothing feels disappointing. Tomorrow is another market day. The work continues. An elderly spice seller closes his eyes for just a moment. He breathes deeply. The air carries the rich fragrance of dried herbs, cumin, coriander, and garlic. He has worked in this same place for many years. The smells have become part of his life. If he traveled far away, he imagines he would miss them almost immediately. Nearby, two scribes sit beneath the shade of a simple awning. They finish recording the day's accounts. One carefully rolls a completed sheet of papyrus. The other gently blows across fresh ink before placing the document aside to dry. Their hands move with quiet precision. Writing has demanded their attention since morning. Now the work is nearly complete. One scribe stretches his stiff shoulders. His friend smiles knowingly. Field workers carry tired muscles in their backs. Scribes carry theirs in their necks and hands. Every kind of work leaves its own gentle mark upon the body. As the light continues changing, birds become more active once again. Swallows dart above the fields chasing tiny insects. White egrets return toward the marshes. A pair of ibises glide silently across the river before disappearing among the tall reeds. The sounds of wings fill the evening air. Even the insects seem to sing a little louder. Nature prepares itself for night just as people prepare for evening. Along one irrigation canal, a farmer makes his final inspection before returning home. He walks slowly beside the flowing water. Everything appears exactly as it should. The banks remain strong. The channels run clear. The crops stand healthy beneath the gentle light. He kneels one last time. Scooping cool water into his hands, he washes away the dust gathered throughout the day. The water slips through his fingers before returning quietly to the canal. He watches it for a few peaceful moments. There is something deeply comforting about moving water. It never remains still. Yet it never seems hurried. He rises with a contented sigh. His work is finished. For today. The wooden hoe rests easily across his shoulder. The familiar path home stretches ahead. In the distance he already sees thin ribbons of smoke rising from cooking fires. Soon the smell of fresh bread will fill the village. Children will run to meet their parents. Families will gather in shaded courtyards. Stories will be shared beneath the evening sky. The stars will slowly return above the Nile. But for now, in this quiet hour between labor and rest, the valley seems to hold a peaceful stillness of its own. The fields glow softly beneath the lowering sun. The river carries small boats gently northward. Palm leaves whisper together in the evening breeze. Dust settles behind slow footsteps. And another ordinary day in ancient Egypt continues its calm and timeless rhythm, where work is never far from family, where every season teaches patience, and where life flows as faithfully as the Nile itself, steady, gentle, and unhurried from one sunset to the next. The sun continues its slow descent toward the western horizon, and the light across the Nile Valley grows softer with every passing moment. The brightness that filled the fields through the middle of the day now settles into warm shades of amber. The edges of every mudbrick home glow gently, while the palm trees stretch long shadows across the dusty roads. The evening is drawing closer. No one needs to look at the sky to know it. The air itself quietly announces the change. The breeze that moves over the Nile carries a welcome coolness. It slips through open courtyards, across rooftops, and between narrow village lanes, bringing relief to every person who has spent the day beneath the Egyptian sun. Workers begin gathering their tools. Not because someone has called for them, but because years of habit have taught them exactly when the day's work should come to an end. A farmer wipes loose soil from the blade of his wooden hoe before placing it across his shoulder. Another carefully coils a length of rope that has been used throughout the day to guide an ox. The rope is wound neatly, without knots or twists. Small acts of care always come before rest. Tools that are respected tend to last longer. Nothing useful is left carelessly in the field. One young man pauses beside an irrigation channel before leaving. He crouches near the water and gently smooths a section of the muddy bank that had been disturbed during the afternoon. The repair takes only a minute. He presses the damp earth firmly with both hands. When he finishes, the channel once again guides the water exactly where it should go. He smiles quietly. Tomorrow morning, there will be one less thing to worry about. Nearby, an elderly farmer walks much more slowly. His steps are careful now. Many seasons of planting and harvesting have left their mark upon his knees. Still, he insists on carrying his own basket. It is lighter than it once was. His sons have gently taken on the heavier work over the years. He no longer objects. He understands that every stage of life brings different responsibilities. As he walks home, he notices a small boy sitting beside the path. The child has become fascinated by a line of ants carrying tiny pieces of leaves. The old farmer stops. For several quiet moments, he watches with him. Neither speaks. The ants continue their patient journey, each one carrying only what it can manage. Finally, the old man smiles. Even the smallest workers never hurry, he says softly. The boy nods without taking his eyes from the ground. It feels like an important lesson, even if he cannot yet explain why. The two continue home together. Along another path, women return from the river carrying full clay jars balanced gracefully upon their heads. Their footsteps are slow and steady. Years of practice have taught them remarkable balance. The water inside each jar moves only slightly despite the uneven ground beneath their feet. A young girl walks among them with her own much smaller jar. She concentrates with all her attention. Every few steps she adjusts her grip. One of the older women notices. She quietly reaches out to steady the little jar for a moment before letting go again. The girl smiles. She keeps walking. One day the journey will feel effortless. Learning often arrives one small step at a time. The road leading back to the village grows busier. Donkeys return carrying baskets filled with vegetables, bundles of flax, and sacks of grain. The animals know the way home almost without guidance. Their ears twitch gently as flies buzz lazily around them. Occasionally one lets out a soft bray that echoes briefly across the fields. Children waiting near the edge of the village recognize the familiar sounds. They run eagerly toward the returning workers. One little boy throws his arms around his father's waist before the man has even set down his basket. The father laughs quietly. His hands are dusty. His linen clothing carries the scent of warm earth and cut grain. The child does not mind. Those familiar smells mean home. Nearby, a daughter reaches for her mother's basket before she has a chance to lower it herself. It is far too heavy. The little girl lifts only one side before smiling at her own effort. Her mother thanks her anyway. Together they carry it the rest of the way. Inside the village, evening preparations begin in every household. Cooking fires are carefully rebuilt from the glowing embers left beneath the morning ashes. Dry reeds catch first. Then small pieces of wood begin burning with steady flames. Soon thin ribbons of smoke rise gently into the evening sky. The smell of fresh bread soon follows. It drifts from one courtyard to another until the entire village seems wrapped in its warm, comforting scent. A woman kneads another batch of dough while humming softly to herself. Her hands move with quiet confidence. Press. Fold. Turn. Repeat. The rhythm has become so familiar that she can carry on a conversation without ever interrupting her work. Nearby, her oldest son sits repairing a fishing basket that has begun to wear thin along one side. His fingers weave fresh reeds through the damaged places. He pulls each strand firmly into place. When he finishes, it is difficult to see where the old basket ends and the repaired section begins. Good repairs blend naturally into the whole. Nothing calls attention to itself. Across the lane, an elderly couple prepares their evening meal together. The husband carefully slices onions while his wife stirs lentils inside a clay pot. Steam rises slowly into the cooling air. The simple meal fills the courtyard with its rich, familiar aroma. Neither speaks very much. They have shared thousands of evenings together. Silence has become another comfortable language between them. Occasionally they exchange a smile. Sometimes one points toward the sky as another flock of birds crosses above the village. Nothing more needs to be said. At the marketplace, the final customers finish their purchases. Merchants begin closing their stalls one by one. Clay jars are covered with woven lids. Bundles of herbs are tied together. Scales are carefully stored away. Wooden shutters swing closed with soft thuds. An older merchant sweeps dust from the floor beneath his awning before leaving. He has opened the stall almost every morning for decades. Closing it each evening has become just as familiar. The marketplace slowly grows quiet. Tomorrow it will awaken once again. Near the river, several fishermen pull their boats onto the muddy shore. The day's final catch is carried home inside woven baskets lined with damp reeds. Before leaving, each fisherman pauses to rinse his hands in the Nile. The cool water washes away the scent of fish and river mud. Some remain beside the water for a few extra moments. The evening light upon the river is too beautiful to leave immediately. The surface has become almost perfectly still. The setting sun paints long ribbons of gold across the current. Reeds sway gently along the banks. A kingfisher dives suddenly into the water before returning to a nearby branch. Everything feels peaceful. The fishermen know that tomorrow morning they will return before sunrise. There is comfort in that certainty. Farther away, builders working on a large stone structure finish their final tasks of the day. Bronze chisels are gathered. Wooden mallets are stacked neatly beneath a shelter. Stone dust clings to their arms and faces. One young worker stretches his shoulders before lifting a heavy water jar to wash. Another quietly helps an older craftsman carry tools back to storage. No one leaves until everything has been put in its proper place. The monument they are helping create may last for generations. But tonight their thoughts are not upon distant centuries. They think instead of warm bread, cool water, their families waiting at home, the simple comforts of evening. As the sun slips lower, long shadows spread across every field. The desert beyond the fertile valley begins changing color. Bright sand becomes soft bronze. Rocky hills glow gently beneath the fading light. The heat slowly escapes into the open sky. Even the wind seems quieter now. A shepherd leads his small flock toward home. The sheep move together without hurry. Tiny clouds of dust rise beneath their hooves before settling again. The shepherd walks behind them carrying a wooden staff polished smooth by years of use. He whistles softly. Not to guide the animals. Simply because the evening feels peaceful. Back in the village, lamps are being prepared. Small clay bowls filled with oil wait beside carefully twisted wicks. Soon they will cast gentle circles of light inside homes where families gather after another full day. For now, however, daylight still lingers. Children continue playing in the narrow streets while there is enough light to see. Grandparents sit in shaded doorways watching them with quiet smiles. Neighbors stop to exchange a few calm words before disappearing into their own courtyards. Above them all, the sky slowly changes from bright gold to soft orange. The first hints of purple appear far above the western desert. Another day is gently drawing toward its peaceful close. The fields grow quieter. The workshops fall silent. The boats rest once more beside the riverbank. And as warm evening light settles over the timeless valley of the Nile, every familiar path leads home, where simple meals, shared conversations, and the comforting rhythm of ordinary life wait patiently beneath the slowly darkening sky. The last rays of the sun linger across the western horizon, touching the tops of the palm trees with a warm golden glow before slowly fading into softer shades of orange and rose. The heat that settled over the valley throughout the day quietly begins to loosen its grip. Cool air drifts once again from the Nile, carrying with it the gentle scent of fresh water, damp reeds, and rich earth. The evening belongs to the village now. The fields grow still. The workshops fall silent. The roads that were busy only an hour ago become peaceful once more. Families disappear through familiar doorways, returning to homes that have sheltered generation after generation. One by one, cooking fires brighten. Small flames dance inside clay ovens, glowing warmly against mud brick walls that have absorbed the day's sunlight. Thin streams of smoke curl upward before disappearing into the deepening blue sky. The smell of baking bread fills the village. It arrives quietly at first. Then it spreads from one courtyard to another until every narrow lane seems wrapped in its comforting warmth. Fresh bread has marked the beginning and the ending of the day for countless years. Its familiar scent welcomes everyone home. Inside one small courtyard, a mother carefully removes several round loaves from the oven using a long wooden paddle. The crust crackles softly as the cooler evening air touches it. She places each loaf onto a woven reed mat to cool. Her youngest son watches patiently. He knows the bread is still too hot to eat. Even so, he cannot stop smiling. The warmth rising from the fresh loaves reaches his face. The smell alone is enough to make him hungry. His older sister gently laughs and breaks off a tiny piece from one loaf after their mother nods in quiet approval. The little boy holds it carefully between his fingers. Steam curls into the evening air. He waits another moment before taking a small bite. Simple food has never seemed so satisfying. Nearby, another family prepares lentils inside a broad clay pot. The stew bubbles gently above glowing coals. An older woman slowly stirs it with a wooden spoon worn smooth from many years of use. She adds onions, garlic, and a handful of herbs gathered earlier that morning. The aroma fills the courtyard. Her granddaughter kneels beside her, watching every movement with patient attention. The child asks quietly why the herbs are added last. The grandmother smiles. So they keep their gentle smell. The girl nods thoughtfully. She will remember. Not because someone told her to memorize it, but because she watched it happen with her own eyes. This is how many lessons travel through the generations. Not inside books. Not written on papyrus. But carried quietly from one pair of hands to another. Across the village, fathers begin washing away the dust of the day. Some kneel beside clay basins filled with cool water. Others walk to the river itself, where the evening light still lingers upon the surface. The water feels wonderfully cool against tired skin. Hands that spent the day lifting baskets or guiding plows become clean once more. Dust disappears into the flowing current. The aches of hard work remain. But they seem lighter now. Several men linger beside the river after washing. There is no urgent reason to return home immediately. The evening is peaceful. A fisherman unties the small cloth wrapped around his midday meal. Only a few dates remain. He quietly shares them with a friend sitting beside him. Neither says much. They simply eat while watching the river. A flock of ibises flies low across the water before disappearing into the reeds. The fishermen follow them with their eyes until they vanish. Then they return to their quiet conversation. They speak of tomorrow's weather. Of a repaired net. Of a son who has begun learning to row. Nothing dramatic. Nothing hurried. Only the ordinary thoughts that gently fill peaceful evenings. Farther upstream, children gather smooth stones along the muddy bank. Some skip them across the calm water. Others build tiny walls from wet clay. Their feet leave small prints in the soft mud. The river slowly smooths many of them away. The children do not mind. Tomorrow they will leave new footprints. An older brother carefully helps his younger sister step over a narrow stream flowing back toward the river. She reaches for his hand without hesitation. Together they continue toward home as twilight slowly settles across the valley. Inside one modest home, an elderly grandfather sits cross-legged upon a woven mat. Beside him rests a small wooden box filled with simple tools. A bronze knife. A bone needle. Several pieces of leather. A smooth stone used for sharpening. He picks up a worn leather strap that belongs to one of his grandchildren's sandals. The stitching has begun to loosen. Patiently, he threads fresh cord through each small opening. His eyesight is not as sharp as it once was. His hands move a little more slowly. Still, every stitch is neat. Every knot is firm. The sandals will last another season. When he finishes, he smiles quietly to himself before placing them near the doorway where they will be found in the morning. No one asked him to repair them. He simply noticed they needed attention. Many acts of kindness arrive without announcement. Throughout the village, evening meals begin. Families gather closely together upon woven mats spread across cool earthen floors or shaded courtyards. Bread is broken into pieces and shared. Bowls of lentils pass from hand to hand. Fresh vegetables gathered that morning are placed in the center where everyone can reach them. Some homes enjoy grilled fish from the Nile. Others have goat cheese or figs. Every meal is different in small ways. Yet they all share the same quiet feeling of togetherness. Conversation moves gently around the circle. A young boy proudly describes helping guide the oxen that morning. His father smiles and asks careful questions. His older sister tells everyone about the tiny birds she watched near the irrigation canal. Their grandmother remembers seeing those same birds when she was a little girl. The stories overlap. One memory leads naturally to another. No one interrupts. Everyone listens. Outside, the village slowly grows quieter. The merchants have already closed their stalls. The roads are nearly empty. Only an occasional donkey passes, carrying its owner home after a long day's journey. The steady sound of hooves against the earth echoes softly before fading into the distance. Oil lamps begin appearing one by one. Small flames flicker gently behind open doorways. Their warm light spills into narrow streets before settling across the packed earth. Inside each home, shadows dance quietly along the walls. Nothing feels harsh. Everything is softened by the gentle glow. Some families choose to eat upon their rooftops where the evening breeze feels stronger. Flat roofs become peaceful gathering places after sunset. Children point toward the first stars appearing overhead. Parents smile as familiar constellations slowly reveal themselves against the darkening sky. The air is cooler now. Far more comfortable than it was only a few hours earlier. An elderly woman leans back against a folded blanket. She closes her eyes for a moment. The breeze brushes gently across her face. Below, she hears distant laughter from another courtyard. Someone begins playing a quiet melody on a simple reed flute. The notes drift slowly through the evening. No one rushes to identify where the music comes from. It simply becomes part of the night. A young mother rocks her sleepy daughter while listening to the flute. The little girl struggles to keep her eyes open. She has spent the entire day following older children through the village, asking endless questions about everything she saw. Now those questions have disappeared. Her breathing grows slower. Her head rests against her mother's shoulder. Nearby, an older brother quietly spreads woven sleeping mats across the rooftop. He has done this many evenings before. The mats are placed where the breeze passes most easily. Blankets are folded neatly at one side. Water jars are covered for the night. Everything is prepared before darkness fully settles. The stars continue multiplying above the valley. Their reflections shimmer faintly upon the broad waters of the Nile. The river itself seems quieter now. Fishing boats rest gently against wooden posts. Their ropes creak softly whenever the breeze shifts. Somewhere across the water, a night bird calls once. Then silence returns. The desert beyond the green fields has already surrendered to darkness. The dunes hold the last warmth of the day beneath their surface. Tiny creatures begin emerging from hidden burrows. A fox moves silently between scattered rocks. An owl glides across the moonlit sand without making a sound. The great desert lives by a different rhythm, one that begins as the fertile valley settles into sleep. Back in the village, conversation grows softer. Meals have ended. Bowls have been washed. Cooking fires fade into glowing embers. Children curl beneath light blankets. Parents sit together for a few quiet moments before sleep. No one speaks of tomorrow's work with worry. It will arrive when the sun returns. For now, there is only the comfort of evening, the cool breath of the Nile, the gentle glow of oil lamps, and the peaceful certainty that another ordinary day has been lived with patient hands, kind neighbors, shared bread, and quiet hearts beneath the endless Egyptian sky. Now the village has become completely still. The last lamp has been gently covered. The final voices have faded into the quiet night. Only the Nile continues its endless journey, flowing through the darkness with the same patient rhythm it has kept for thousands upon thousands of years. The moon hangs high above the river. Its pale light rests upon sleeping boats, empty fields, silent workshops, and rows of humble mud-brick homes where families dream after another day of honest work. The bread has been baked. The tools have been put away. The baskets stand neatly beside the walls. The sandals wait patiently near each doorway, ready for another sunrise that will come in its own time. Nothing asks to be hurried. The wind moves softly through the palm trees. The leaves answer with a gentle whisper. Somewhere among the reeds, a frog calls into the darkness. Far away, a night bird glides silently across the sky before disappearing over the quiet water. The stars shine with calm certainty above the valley. Generations have looked up at these same constellations. Farmers resting after harvest. Fishermen returning with empty or full nets. Builders whose hands shaped great stones. Scribes who carefully recorded ordinary days. Mothers baking bread before dawn. Children running barefoot through dusty lanes. Grandparents sitting beneath evening skies, watching one more peaceful sunset over the Nile. Most of their names have been forgotten. History rarely remembers the ordinary people. Yet it was their quiet work that carried Egypt through century after century. They planted the grain. They carried the water. They repaired the walls. They wove the baskets. They shaped the clay. They cared for one another through seasons of abundance and seasons of uncertainty. Their lives were not filled with endless adventure. Instead, they were built from familiar mornings, patient afternoons, shared meals, gentle conversations, and peaceful evenings beneath a sky full of stars. Perhaps that is why their world still feels strangely comforting. It reminds us that a meaningful life is often made from small moments repeated with care. A loaf of warm bread. A cool drink of water after hard work. The sound of children laughing nearby. The steady hands of an elder teaching a younger one. The comfort of returning home as the sun disappears beyond the western desert. Night grows deeper. The breeze becomes cooler. The Nile continues flowing quietly through the darkness. Palm leaves sway gently above sleeping rooftops. The last glowing embers fade into soft gray ash. Even the insects seem to sing more softly now. The whole valley appears to rest. Tomorrow, before the first bird calls, another ordinary day will quietly begin. Someone will wake before dawn to light the oven. Someone will carry water from the river. Someone will guide a wooden plow through rich black soil. Someone will shape fresh clay into another useful vessel. Someone will write careful lines upon smooth papyrus. Someone will tell an old story to a curious child. And the Nile will be there, as faithful as ever, carrying life gently through the valley beneath the endless sky. But none of that belongs to this moment. For now, there is only stillness. Only cool air drifting across quiet water. Only the soft glow of moonlight resting upon the ancient land. So allow your thoughts to become as calm as the river itself. Let every slow breath feel like the gentle current moving through the reeds. Let the distant sounds of the ancient night grow quieter and quieter, until they become part of a peaceful silence. And as the stars keep their silent watch above the sleeping Nile, may you drift gently into deep, restful sleep, carried by the same timeless calm that has settled over this quiet valley for thousands of years. Good night. And may peace travel with you as softly as the waters of the ancient Nile.